suffering. My dear.
There's not enough scotch in the world for that.
Shirley, what are you writing now?
A little novella. I'm calling none of your goddamn business.
Well, you were invited to stay here for a few days until we can find a place.
Shirley has these bouts.
She's gone sick in the head.
I read your story.
What are you doing in here?
It made me feel thrillingly horrible.
Do you know what it's like to have a secret?
What are you up to?
That girl, what do you think?
Trite and a bit trashy, but give it a go.
I like you, Rosie.
Can I trust you?
I feel like we're in the Scottish play. On the verge of madness. What will happen? See their secret looks.
Freud would have had a field day.
I'm counting down from 3. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, you've done it.
What becomes of your dear heroine?
What happens to all lost girls? They go mad.
But so nice to meet you. Thank you for doing the interview. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
I guess I'm going to start off with this. I have to admit, honestly, if I didn't read that this was a fictional story, I would have swore it was a biopic. So, so I got to ask you, I was like, you took elements from Shirley Jackson's life and, her well-known stories, as I know, but was it always intentional to make a lot of the viewers think that it was, it could be a real story, like more or less?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I announced it as being a fictional version of Shirley Jackson, it gave me a lot more room to kind of play, and it was a fictionalized account of what I thought it might be like to have been in Shirley Jackson's head. As at this particular moment in her writing career. And so that's all supposition, but it also, we pulled a lot from the kind of writerly imagination that she clearly had, because we have her work. So and then, there's documented, biographies and first person letters. So she was a real person, and she had kind of a very, very sharp wit and a very quick mind. But she also, dabbled in the occult and was an amazing cook and made these fantastic pies and loved to drink and lived in a house with, I think they had 10,000 books in the house. Probably at one time, I think they had something like 16 cats. So, you kind of take some of those elements and there's your dollhouse,
Oh, that's awesome. So what was it like working with Josephine to actually bring this into reality? The visuals were stunning. There were times that I'm just like, oh my God, I was like, I was always looking for something. And each one of the dream sequences, especially, and I'm like, what are they trying to tell me right here? I was like, did I miss something? I was like, shit. I was like, let me rewind real quick. How was that? Was it exactly what, close to where you had in your head as well?
I mean, that was the great thing was I really come from a dialogue place. I learned about my characters through dialogue. So that's my introduction to them. However, I also knew that writing all of the kind of scenes that take place in Shirley's imagination, or even in her kind of psychic breaks, like the moment that she has to leave the house, spoiler, sorry, but that those are gonna, that we needed somebody that could help us feel what it felt like to be Shirley,
Mm-hmm.
both in the trauma of the kind of imagination and in the real life situations that she would find herself in. But so I saw Josephine's. I didn't know Josephine, but I saw That Was Lovely, which is the film she made before Madeline's Madeline,
Oh, yeah.
and I thought, like, there's so many things that felt Shirley Jackson about it, or the Shirley that I was feeling like I was getting to know, if that makes sense. And I remember thinking, like, just the ways in which I couldn't breathe throughout watching that entire movie, and the ways I couldn't look away, and how she seduces you with like very mundane things, but they become like terrifying and gorgeous and a little sometimes grotesque, but also not, like, you still can't look away. And so I felt like that was the feeling that we wanted when we entered this world. And it's completely unexpected, and the way in which Josephine is able to kind of, you know, breathe life into the camera, so it feels like it's a spectator or a witness or even sometimes a haunting presence in the house,
totally.
you know?
Yeah, no, like, and I quote, like, in that first, I think it was part of the trailer, but like when Rose says to her the first time she met, I was horrifyingly thrilled by your story.
Yes.
And I was like, that is everything. I was like, that is that line. I was like, when our review is written, I'm like, that line needs to be there, because that's exactly how I felt throughout the whole story. It was beautiful. I loved it. I had such a good time watching it, especially the second time too, because then I was able to really see a lot of the things that you were doing and you wanted to portray. But with that, like, my next question is, so when you were developing the characters, were there any key traits that you really wanted the characters to have specifically?
You mean just the characters in the script?
Yeah, I guess so. Like,
yeah.
People, yeah.
I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I do think I didn't know how it was going to land, but I knew that I knew that the sound of the relationship between Shirley and Stanley would be the kind of foundational element of the film, and that they have like an intellectual seduction all the time, and sometimes it's very perverse, you might call it, and sometimes it may be less than healthy, but it's theirs. And it's so I knew that they would use language and wit and sarcasm, you know, just to kind of propel their own kind of unspoken wants throughout the film. So I kind of, that was a big trait. And I knew that I didn't want to step away or dumb down or shy away from the fact that they would speak to each other in references that are literary, or, you know, maybe even some that are esoteric. It's not the way that I particularly would talk to somebody or everybody, but it's how they converse. And so I knew that going in, and having read their letters, they're so hilarious that I also love their kind of very dark sense of humor that really they shared. So I knew that had to be in the film.
Oh, that's awesome. No, yeah, it was like, I know once that, like, they had that first scene together and everything, I was just like, yo, this is going to be witty. This is one thing. I'm like, I'm going to have to bring back all the, like, my classes just to make sure I can keep up with them, because I was like, if I'm not keeping up, oh man, but it was way too good. And, you know, since I know we're short on time as well, but you know, you touched, I read one of your statements that you had and everything, about the quirks of writers in general, like, you know, everything from how they, you know, usually are perceived and how they go through life, and sometimes their bathing habits, you know, like that. And
I showed him clean for you.
Appreciate it. Trust me, I shower too. I don't care if it's in between us. But you know, I wanted to know, like, so how did it feel writing about another writer?
I mean, there's, you know, I so greatly esteem Shirley Jackson's work, and so there's a part of me that felt like I didn't I didn't want to be presumptuous in that the ways in which I write are the ways that she wrote, but it felt good to air some of the dirty laundry about how shitty it actually is to have to sit down and write and just look, and just the ripping up of the pages and just the total despondency. And I think that's really, I think when you're really in it as a writer, that you're faced with absolute kind of terror of whether it's working, and that usually means you're pursuing something worthwhile, you know.
No, that it definitely was. Again, I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. It's so well written. It was gorgeous. Like I hope. Like,
thank you.
I would gush over it a lot more and all that fun stuff. I know we're running a little low on time, but no, honestly, I think we covered everything I definitely had for you and all that. Thank you so much, and really appreciate it. And
thank you. I so appreciate your response to the film. You know, you make something, you never know what people are going to think, and it's really great to hear. So I appreciate it.
You know, honestly, I thought we were walking into like almost a pseudo horror film too, because from the trailer, I was like, okay, is there going to be like some hacking and slashing, or I'm like a psychological thriller? I'm just like, trust me, I have so many questions. There's certain things that I still want to go back to. I'm like, did that really happen? So I can tell you, no, I think this is a really well received movie so far, like from what I can see, and I think it's going to go a long way. I think this is awesome. I love it.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, Sarah. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Ciao.